And while I always believed in God, and I believe that we're here for a proper purpose, that we're here growing and learning every day, all of us, and learning how to love people and be compassionate and merciful, the things that we need to develop, these beautiful traits. But I couldn't imagine that my son, my daughter, my father-in-law, and my wife will stand here to live this way, because that's not a life. And I went on a prayer search, and I started searching and asking people and fasting and praying and looking for answers. And over a 2-year period, eventually I came to the point that pieces started to come into the puzzle. It wasn't a fast journey. But one day I'm walking down the hall with a man. He was the owner's liaison, and I'm doing property management. We're talking about budgetary issues in these buildings, and I'm telling him about how bad it has been with my son. I've had to go get him 3 times this week from school. He's so out of control. It's not his fault, and it's literally ripping my heart out, because I'm going to have to institutionalize him if I can't get this thing fixed. And I was so helpless. I didn't have any answers. The doctors didn't have any answers. Nobody could help me. And he said to me, Tony, I don't know a whole lot about mental disorders. Never had one. My wife is okay. My kids are okay. So I don't understand that part of it. But he said, I spent 20 years working in the agricultural industry. And I looked at him, and I'm thinking, where is he going with this? And he said, I looked after hundreds of thousands of hogs. This is going to sound a little strange. Throughout the northwest part of the U.S., the western part of Canada. And he said, I would formulate the feed for these animals. And I used to see a disorder that wasn't all that uncommon. It's called ear and tail biting syndrome. And he said, what happens is these animals rage. And when he told me that, it took me home. Like I'm seeing my son and his raging behavior. And he said they become explosive with hyper-irritability. And I'm seeing my son do all of these violent acts in the home, and everybody's trying to settle him down and control him. And I'm right there. And he said, but, we learned 2 things. First, you had to pin these animals away from each other, or you had a fatality. And the second thing is, we came to understand very quickly from the scientific agricultural literature that you could nutrate away the disorder. And I said, nutrate? He said, yes, like in nutrition. Well, I'm not a nutritionist by any stretch. I'm an engineer. Engineers solve problems, and I have a major problem, but all of a sudden I had this experience I'd never had before. And I've heard people say, well, so-and-so had an epiphany, or I had an epiphany, and they explain before what it's like. I've never experienced this, but I absolutely had an epiphany. I knew what he was saying was absolutely true, and that was the answer. That was the complete answer. It was in nutrition. It was like going on a long, long bus ride and pulling up to the station. And you know that feeling that you have like I've arrived? That's what it was like. And I set out from that day, I just had a feeling of peace and joy that came over me, like a major answer. And I set out, that very moment, moving ahead from that point, and started putting him on different nutritional cocktails that we put together. January 17th, I put him on a cocktail of nutrients. January 18th, sorry. Interestingly enough, he ran out of lithium about 3 days later. That's his drug. My wife and I had quite a discussion over whether or not she was going to refill the prescription. I call it a family fight. Anyhow, It was, I lost, and she went down and got the bottle of lithium and brought it home from the pharmacy, and she gave it to me. And she said, you know, Tony, I'm so afraid. I don't know what to do. And I took that bottle and I put it upstairs in our bedroom medicine cabinet. And I'll tell you, I never, ever had to take that lithium down and use it ever again. Because within 30 days, this young man no longer exhibited any symptoms whatsoever of bipolar disorder. He got better. My daughter got better. She had to come and stay with us. She was struggling really, really badly. Her doctor said that if she lost it again, she would become institutionalized. Her husband, Dana, was very afraid of this whole situation. We ended up putting her on the nutrient protocol. She got better. I took it out in the community, started working with mothers that had ADHD children, wondering if it would work, working with people with depression, wondering if it would work, and worked on all of them. It was shocking how many people in our community were getting better and how many phone calls I was getting. Can you still hear me okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Can we get his picture up maybe if he's just going to be speaking? Oh yeah, that would be nice.
If possible.
Good.
Yeah, Tony, they're suggesting that while you were looking at a screen, they'd rather look at you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to change the screen here.
Okay.
Real quick. Sorry. I guess a dead screen doesn't look as good or whatever. My wife is laughing in the background. Anyhow, interestingly enough, I realized that we better get some research into this because it's starting to do some amazing things. And so, took it to the University of Calgary, and Dr. Bonnie J. Kaplan decided that she was going to do some research with it. Her and Dr. Stephen Simpson. Stephen is a psychiatrist as well as a PhD biochemist working out of the University of Calgary. They took their very first 10 patients that were already medicated, not doing well on medications. We see it all the time. In spite of the medications, they're not doing well. And they put them on this nutrient protocol. They were asked by the Canadian Psychiatric Association, that's credibility, to do a talk presentation, which they did. Our national news carrier, one of them, CTV National News, happened to be there, and they made a story out of it. Here's the story, I'll play it for you.
Tonight on CTV, can a nutritional supplement help people suffering with a troubling medical disorder? CTV's Amos Macro has an exclusive report you won't want to miss. Watch CTV News tonight at 11. It all started as one man's desperate attempt to save his family from mental illness, but he may have discovered